Hey, I think your social media needs to be a little bit more social. Want to learn how to use social media to generate more referrals for your business? Stick around to find out more on today's episode of This Week in Sales. Hello and welcome to This Week in Sales. I'm Kevin Gaither, the CEO and founder of Inside Sales Recruiting. You may recall the goal of the show is to help sales professionals with tips and tactics and techniques to help them improve their performance right now. Today's guest is Joanne Black, founder of No More Cold Calling and author of the book by the same name. She's also America's leading authority on referral selling. Joanne, welcome to the show, and welcome back.
Thanks, Kevin, and I love the topic today.
Yes. Well, let's start, though. First, tell me, what's your nightmare social media story?
You know how sometimes you'll get an invitation on LinkedIn from someone you don't know? So I got this one day, and I looked, and this person seemed like he had good connections, he was upright, it was a solid company, and so I accepted. About 3 or 4 weeks later, he sends me an email and wants me to introduce him to a famous author. I didn't even know this author. So then I figured, aha, that's why he sent me the invitation. And then I received an invitation from someone else, and I was debating whether to accept her invitation or not, but I figured, okay, I'll do it, it's fine. And then I got these emails from her about a program she was running. And then she had the gall to email me and say, the reason I invited you on LinkedIn was to share these programs with you. Awful. No. Out of my list.
Right. Yeah, that is a nightmare, and I think we all can relate to that. I think it would be even more of a nightmare if I didn't stop and introduce you properly. So I'm going to do that right now. Joanne is a captivating speaker and innovative seminar leader. Joanne Black is changing the business of sales. She is America's leading authority on referral selling and the author of the No More Cold Calling book, the breakthrough system that will leave your competition in the dust. One of my favorite reads this year. In this groundbreaking book, Joanne explains why cold calling and other ineffective prospecting techniques persist, even though most sales reps know they don't work. She teaches you how to hit your numbers without hitting the phones, with less sweat, and with results you can bank on. Her proven referral system works every time. Referrals generate revenue faster than any other business development method while decreasing costs, acing out the competition, and gaining new clients more than 50% of the time. If you want to learn more about Joanne Black and No More Cold Calling, go to nomorecoldcalling.com. So Joanne, we talked about referral selling on previous episodes, of course. How does social media relate to referral selling?
I'm asked that question a lot, but first I think we need to step back and talk about what social media is, because people have different perceptions of that, and I have my own way of thinking about it, and it's not just me. I thought it was first, but now I've heard other people talk about it the same way. It's a very broad definition. Many times we think of social media as the standard social media sites, such as LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. It's actually way more than that. It includes all the things we do on the internet. So it's our website, our blogs, anywhere we post articles in different publications online, and any comments we make on other people's sites. So it is all of that, all inclusive. Anything we do on the internet is social media.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, and should we also step back and define what a referral is in the context of our show for those viewers who didn't see us last week?
Oh, they should see what we did last week. But yeah, a referral, when you receive a referral, I'm going to ask you because we learned that last week.
Yes.
What happens? What is the definition of a referral? You receive what?
Receive an introduction, a warm introduction.
Yes, you receive an introduction. And that can be by phone, it can be by email, it can be in person. But the individual who's referring us has actually introduced us and checked with the other person that, yes, this is a person I'd like to talk to, and they know why they're taking the meeting. That's a referral.
Fantastic. Of course, we bashed on cold calling last week, and I know you had fun with that, of course, right?
Of course.
So let's talk about LinkedIn. You know, theoretically, the king of social media for business professionals. Isn't that all I'd ever need for a referral selling plan? Just LinkedIn and I'm good to go.
Yeah, okay. So we all want the easy way out, right? We want to put that little CD under our pillow and wake up transformed, right? We're salespeople. That's what we want, easy. LinkedIn is a phenomenal tool. It is the professional standard social media site, and there are ways to use it and ways not to use it. People have said to me exactly that. You know, how do referrals and LinkedIn go together? How do I use the social media to gain a referral introduction? So there's some key things about LinkedIn and other social media sites. First of all, it's not a place to sell. You know, like that horror story I said about that gal who wrote me, she had a program she was promoting. No, it's not a place to sell at all. And if we're selling and we're pushing product, that's the fastest way to have people ignore us. What social media is, it's a place to communicate, to set up channels of people talking to you. And at first when I heard this, I said, come on. You know, it's on the web. What do you mean communicate? Well, there is definitely a way to promote your point of view, to start a discussion, to answer questions, to ask questions. When people learn your point of view and what you're about, and you contribute good content and ideas. And you know what? Companies pay attention to that. They really do. And so never a place to sell at all. So build those communication channels all the time. Now, another thing about LinkedIn is that people do business with people, not with technology. And there's so many times I go to look on LinkedIn, look up a person, and there's that little gray picture, right? They don't even have their picture up. So for everybody listening, if you don't have your picture, put your picture, because I want to see what you look like, because then I make that connection. I actually have a client, and she knows better. And I said, your picture's not up there. And she wrote me back and said, I hate my pictures. So of course I'm calling her and I'm saying, you need to get a good picture and get it up there. I mean, that seems so basic, doesn't it?
Right, right.
But it's critical because people need to see you. Because I don't just want to see you with your words you've written, I actually want to see you. And that's huge. And the other thing with LinkedIn, you need to complete your profile so that people know about you, and do it not in what I call corporate speak. So not the things that you might be reading, but bring your personality out. And say things that you like to do, things that maybe people don't know about. This is a way for people to learn not just about you, but about your company, what you like, and what your talents are, where you went to school. And we can find out lots of information, can't we?
Yep, yep.
Lots of information.
What do you think about putting your graduation date on from college on there?
I don't do that for obvious reasons. But no, what difference does it make when you graduated? The thing is, put in where you went to school. The reason for that is, obviously, if you're out of school 2 years, it really doesn't matter. But we're all looking for ways to connect with each other. And so, as you know, Kevin, that I went to Berkeley, so I'm a Cal grad, and those of us who've been to Cal and have graduated call ourselves old blues. Some of us are older blues than others. But we can kid around with that and say I'm an old blue. And whenever I speak in the Bay Area, I always say I'm a Cal grad, and somebody in the group will automatically say, go Bears!
Right.
Because that's another way of connecting. That's what we're looking for. That's why we put our schools in. That's why we put our hobbies, our interests, our travel, so the people can connect. In fact, one person I spoke with said that she always looks for where people went to school, because she's found people. She went to a small college, and they went to the same school she did, so she really has another connection, and she'll reach out to those people. So find those common connections. I don't think you need to put the year. What difference does it make?
Right, right.
It
Good. I get that question a lot, actually. So key things to LinkedIn: it's not a place to sell. People do business with people. So for crying out loud, get a picture up there, get a good picture up there, get something up there. And by the way, have yourself smile on the picture for crying out loud. I've so many, it's like, I'm serious. That's what I look like. People are going to judge you by the way you look. Trust me, I'm looking at those pictures every single day. So put a smile on your face for crying out loud, and then complete your profile. Any other keys on LinkedIn, Joanne?
Absolutely. So when you talked about the picture, have a professional picture. So there's pictures up there with like the dog and the kids. No, not appropriate. So have a professional picture taken. Key about LinkedIn, when you invite people, personalize the invitation. I receive invitations from a lot of you, and they will say, please join my professional network on LinkedIn. Well, what that communicates to me is you didn't take any time at all to learn about me, to tell me why we should connect, and you want me to accept your invitation. Personalize it. It takes like no time at all. So if you're listening to This Week in Sales and you want to invite me, please do, and tell me that you heard this episode on This Week in Sales, and I absolutely will connect with you. That's what we need to do. And then when we accept an invitation, always write a reply. I will write a reply and say something like, thank you for the invitation to connect. And then I will say, I'm glad to offer referral tips anytime. I might send them to a link on my site where they can get information about referrals. So I'm offering some help, which I'm delighted to do. And occasionally someone will say, yeah, I think I'll take you up on that, or I may take you up on that. But again, remember, keeping those communication channels open. And I have talked to experts on social media and tested them. What about that standard invitation? Because you can automate that.
Right.
And it's not about automation. It's about building personal connections. Mm-hmm. Now, there's another thing about LinkedIn. They have where you can automatically ask for a referral introduction. Have you seen that, Kevin?
Automatically?
Yes, so
automatically.
I can email you, so it's automated, maybe that's more the word. And I can say, Kevin, I see through LinkedIn that you're connected to Paul. I would like the introduction to Paul. All right. Do not use that. Do not use that.
Wow.
I don't like it. Can you guess why I don't like it?
Well, because you're asking for the cold. It's a cold call, basically, that you're asking for, in essence, or a cold referral.
Well, it is. I mean, it's nothing personal about it, and you've missed an opportunity. So here's what happened to me one time. I was traveling to Atlanta for a conference, and I had a little extra time. Mm-hmm. So I decided to do some research on LinkedIn about companies that would be good clients for me in Atlanta. And I noticed that there were two different people who had many connections. One of the people I didn't know, but I knew his business partner. So I called the business partner, whose name is John. And I said, John, I see that Steve, the business partner, is connected to some of the people I'd like to meet in Atlanta, but I don't know him. Steve, would you introduce me to him? And he said, of course, but just know Steve accepts every LinkedIn invitation. So it's a good chance he won't know the people. He introduced me to Steve. Steve and I scheduled a time to talk. And just as I thought, he didn't know these people at all. But we had the conversation. And he came up with someone else and made an introduction to an entirely different person that I didn't know. And he and I have connected. You miss the opportunity to talk to people. If you want to connect and say, Kevin, that I see that you're connected to Paul and I want to meet Paul, I'm going to reach out to you. And I want to talk to you about, do you know Paul, first of all? And if you do, I want to find out about him. And I want to share with you why I want to meet him. Because you need to be comfortable making that introduction, correct?
Right. That's exactly right.
Plus, I find out where you're at now. You know, everybody's at a different place. This week, next week, I mean, they could be at the same job, but they're facing other issues. Maybe they're traveling. You could can build out, again, that personal connection. You're building the relationship, and you've missed the opportunity to build that relationship, get information, ask how I can help if you haven't had that personal conversation. So do not use the automated, will you refer me,
right,
on LinkedIn.
Right. Very good. Not a place to sell? I've seen on LinkedIn Answers, somebody says, I'm having difficulty building a list for sales, building a list for marketing automation. Are you saying that the Jigsaw or the Data.com rep or the ZoomInfo rep should not go on there and say, hello, raise your hand, I can be a solution for you? Is that what you're telling us?
In a way. So I think that when they're looking for a list or whatever, that the person answering the question needs to give them some valuable information. So maybe it's information about how to use their list. Maybe it's some things to avoid. So they're giving good content. The person still knows who they are. And I think it's a trap. It really is a trap that we can just be pushing. And that's not what it's about. So we need to be giving ideas. And, obviously, if you're selling lists and you want to put in there, buy my list and I'll talk to you, you can do that. I just don't think it's appropriate. That's my point of view.
Right. It's so transparent, though, isn't it? Like when somebody's actively, I've even seen people ask a question and then they're the first one to answer their question with the product that they're peddling. I mean, please get a hold of yourself and be genuine. I've heard that phrase, be genuine and try and help and provide content that helps that other person without thinking about what you might get for that in return, and oftentimes you'll be better off for that.
That's
just like you were saying there.
Absolutely.
So fantastic. So not a place to sell. People do business with people, so get a good professional picture up there, which by the way, they only cost like $75, or you can get a friend with a good camera to take a picture for you there, right? Complete your profile, personalize that invitation. If you're going to take the time to ask somebody, write a little note there. And when you get that invitation, write a reply back with something genuine in return for that. And don't use that request a referral, the automated, because you'd be missing out on the opportunity to connect with the person through which you're trying to get to that other person there. Let's talk about paring down your network, though. Do you ever go into LinkedIn, Joanne, and pare down the people that you're connected with? Is that a good strategy for keeping that the network tight?
I haven't done that, but I know people who have, and they pared it down because they just want to have the people they really know and trust in their network. Certainly that you can do that. Now, one of the things that when people invite you to connect and you don't know them, just click ignore, because otherwise if you don't, it's going to keep appearing, or they'll be blocked, and you don't necessarily want to do that. But just click ignore and they won't come back. But I think the key is to be careful about who you accept.
Right. Very good.
And some people do accept every invitation, as I said, but I don't.
Yeah, that's right. LION, LinkedIn Open Networker. That's your sure sign there. And we're talking about making your social media more social. And I think the last thing you said, I think, is one of the most important things there. And that's, make that connection. When you connect with somebody there, make that offline connection. In fact, we're going to have Nigel Edelshane on the show next month. And he recommends that very same strategy is, make that online connection, make that online connection an offline connection as well. Take 5 minutes, get on the phone, and have a conversation with that person so there's a little bit more of a bond. Sounds like you would agree with that strategy.
I do agree, and I think that for me, LinkedIn is a few things. It's finding out who people are. You can find out all the information and find out who they know, so you see how you're connected. And then you need to pick up the phone and have the conversation. I'm sure you know the answer to this quiz, Kevin.
Uh-oh, hot seat.
Who invented the telephone?
It's not Alexander Graham Bell?
Yes, it is.
Yes. What
and
do I
when?
win?
Oh, well, no, I'm not telling it on the air. What? Do you remember when? Do you have any idea when? This is a tough part. Was it last year?
1982? I don't know.
March 7th, 1876.
How do you know that?
Oh, because, how do I know it? Because I Googled it and I found out when did Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. So the point to that is, telephone's been around a long time. We all know how to use it. It doesn't crash. Right? It's a simple technology. People talk to people, and technology is a tool, and truly what's happened today with social media, and I want to go into some of the other applications of it as well, is that like you were on your phone, the opening, we tend to hide behind what I call the technology curtain. It's so easy not to talk to people. And especially with younger salespeople who've grown up in the technology world, that they seem to think that all they can do is just sit there and email people, and that's going to make a difference in their sales. Well, you know what? People want to talk. And it doesn't matter what age people are, they want to talk. And we forget that. We forget the telephone communication. And it can be on the phone now. I mean, it can be on the web. You can see people, video. I mean, there's all kinds of tools. But we're craving that. I mean, and you walk into a networking event, say you're in person. I've seen this a lot. There's people standing there playing with their phones, right? Why are they doing that? Well, they're uncomfortable being in a group. And they think that this makes them look really cool. Well, it doesn't, because you need to go and connect. And you're not connecting if you're looking down at your phone. And I had one time, there was a religious service that we were at, and people aren't even out of the sanctuary, and they got their phones on looking. Now, what is so important? You can't wait till you're outside.
Right.
So we get hooked into technology. It becomes an addiction. And there's actually was something written on that in the San Francisco Chronicle about technology addiction. People, if they can't check their phones, they get hyper, they get anxious, their heart starts beating. I mean, there's all this list of technology addiction.
Oh, I believe it.
Yes. So we need to get beyond that. It is a phenomenal tool. So learn what we can. And then I'd like to just reflect back on the broader definition of social media for a minute. It's about what we have on our website, our blogs, so people get to know us on our blogs, what we say, our point of view. Again, good content, good tips for people to use, good communication. Let's not forget email, because email is, again, a social media tool when you think of it this way. So I'll give you an example. I was traveling, speaking at a conference in the Midwest, and I go into my hotel room and I turn on the television. And there's this movie that's just starting, and it's called Fever Pitch. Have you ever seen it?
I have.
Yeah, it's a wonderful film.
Yes.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, it's about the Boston Red Sox. And for those of you who also don't know, Red Sox fans are like way over the top. One of my clients is a Red Sox fan. In fact, the first time we had lunch, he's a senior vice president of worldwide sales. First time we had lunch, he looks at me and he says, "You're not a Yankee fan, are you?" I mean, that's how he gets. So anyhow, I see this movie, so I said, I have to write him an email. So I write him an email, and the subject line, I put Fever Pitch. And I said, just saw this, thought of you, and by the way, I'm writing my next book. You were so gracious to let me interview you for the first book. May I interview you for the next? And he writes back, like the next morning, right? That, it's my favorite movie, especially, love the ending. And yes, I'd be glad to give you an interview. Well, it was a communication tool. Also, I had just seen the opening, so I knew before I talked to him, I had to see the film.
Right.
So I knew what the ending was. But again, it's connecting. We need to look all different ways to connect. How are we going to do this? And it's not, like you say, it's not pushing product. It's about making that personal connection on every level, because people do business with people. You've heard this, people they know, like, and trust. That's old news. But you can work with a salesperson that you like. Think of it this way. Have you ever had a salesperson come to you and they were just a great person, but there's no way you could use the product?
Sure.
Yeah. So I bet you looked for other opportunities to refer them for people you knew, right?
No doubt.
Yes. Because that was just a top person, but you couldn't use the product. Now, conversely, you might have somebody with a terrific product, but you thought this salesperson was pushy and arrogant and didn't ask you the right questions.
Yeah.
There's
Pass.
Pass. Even though the product was great, you'll find another way to buy the product.
Right.
So it's all about that level of trust. How do you gain a level of trust? You start to build that through social media. I challenged that at first. I said, how can you actually start to build a conversation through social media? But you can, the way we've described, by having conversations, answering questions, get people to know your point of view. And that's how you begin to build the communication, the conversation, and the trust. But where you really build it is then when you have the conversation.
Good. I'm taking feverish notes here. I feel like you're touching on some best practices in social media here, and I want to round this out for the audience. Build trust. What else? What else do you have for us?
Oh, as far as best practices, the first thing, like anything we do, we need to step back. And we need to determine our social media strategy. Again, not a lot of time. Remember I said I'm a salesperson. I don't spend a lot of time on this.
Right.
So bullets. But what's your social media strategy? What are you trying to accomplish? And then how does that fit into your overall business strategy? So it's not a standalone. It's a way of then communicating your point of view from your business strategy. That's what you want to do. So first of all, it's a strategy. Second, you need to have an ambassador. Someone needs to own it. That might be you if you're a sole proprietor, or it may be somebody in the company, or you may say, you know what, I need to hire someone to be responsible for this and drive the social media strategy for my company. That could be it. So you need, number one, a strategy, number two, an ambassador, number three, metrics. And these are sticky because social media, sometimes the metrics are tougher because they're not always immediate.
Right.
Yeah. So it could take some time, but it could be that maybe your only metric is, say for your website, that you get more visitors, or maybe you have people commenting on your blog, or maybe you have a lot of people inviting you, or maybe it's actually business you've closed because you sourced it on LinkedIn. Because on LinkedIn, another best practice is, if we're in sales, what are the companies that you want to get into? And you can track those, you can get alerts for them, who are the people within the companies you need to meet. So you have a whole strategy then about how do you make those connections on LinkedIn, and who do you want to meet, and how are you going to get introduced to them. And this is some of the work I do, and it doesn't take a lot of time. So I ask people who really do a deep dive into social media and teach the nuts and bolts of it, which I don't do. You know, it seems like it takes so much time. How am I going to have time for this with everything else I do? So what I've heard, and these experts say, 15 to 30 minutes a day, that's it. And in that time, you should be able to invite people, accept invitations, do your basic research, and have your follow-up. And it's like anything else, if the time can get away, right? You can start and 2 hours later you surface. So I suggest setting a timer. It's the same thing for if we want to file. Who likes to file? Right? Set a timer for 30 minutes, and when that timer goes off, you stop. You're done, and you go on to other things. So that's another piece, is the time we spend. So the strategy, ambassador, metrics, and time. And then the other two things are really important too, is to be current and to be active. If you're spending 15 to 30 minutes a day, you will be active. So it's not, oh, I'm going to post something every 2 weeks or once a month or even once a week. No, it needs to be way more than that. And you need to be current. You're not posting old news. What is it's happening now that's of interest, that the people who are following you want to know? And on the back end, you know, you only need to post once, so you can hook your LinkedIn comments to Twitter, and vice versa. Your blog can automatically go on LinkedIn. Don't ask me how to do that. I'm not technical, but someone on my team does it. I know it's not difficult.
Right.
That's a huge time saver, so you can post something once and it will appear.
Right.
And, you know, getting back to, if you also have, it's not a place to sell, but if you have something you're offering that's complimentary, there's a way to post those events on LinkedIn so that people can learn about it. And that's a great way for you to start to build connections. In fact, we did this a short time ago. I facilitated a webinar called Turn Cold to Gold. And it was about how to build a referral business. There was super great content in there, and it was absolutely complimentary. And we put the word out on social media. Under the events, we let people know. And I have a small company, Kevin. I'm not a huge company that has all these contacts. We had over 650 people register. And I thought, that's good.
You're right.
Yeah, and then of course if they couldn't attend, they could listen to the recording. But that was another way of my building connections with people, giving them really good content. and inviting to this something that could help their sales career. So we need to look for ways to do that.
Excellent. So I'm going to summarize. You tell me if I'm wrong. Have a social media strategy, right? Number 2, somebody's got to own that, own your social media strategy and implementation, of course. Have some sort of metrics, whether that be visits to your site or webinar attendees. Have some metrics. Spend 15 to 30 minutes per day on your social media activity. And you said 5 and 6, be current, be active. Yes. Right? Be current, be active. And then 7, did I understand correctly? Make sure you've got relevant content that you can offer into these channels to help people out. How did I do?
You did great.
Perfect. Good, good. Well, excellent. Anything else to add to that?
I think that's a good list. I'm a little overwhelmed right now with that.
It's a lot to do. I know that there's a lot of sales managers out there that are hearing what you're saying, and they're quivering in their boots because they're thinking, if I tell my salespeople to get on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook, they'll be on there all day long and screwing around. Agree? Disagree? Is that a problem with the people that you've hired? Is that a problem with the manager? What, you've gotten that before, I'm sure.
If that's all they're doing, they're not going to be around very long.
Right.
Right. So they've got goals and quotas to meet. They need to work on LinkedIn, and I know a lot of salespeople do that. They spend quite a bit of time finding the connections, and that's going to be very important. And who they know and who they know within their company, they can help them with referral introductions, all of that. So sometimes it makes sense to say to people, here's your 30 minutes or hour on LinkedIn and do it. And you know what? If they're getting results from that, that's all we want. It's not about micromanaging, and if the people are just on there fooling around, well, they're probably not going to be around very long because they're not going to get the results. Sometimes people say to me, well, look on Facebook. No, why are you doing that now? So I will, I'll hear the same thing. But the other thing is, Kevin, during a day, we'll take a break, we'll get some water, we'll get some coffee, we'll go to lunch with someone. We need to get off the grid, so to speak, and have something that takes our mind away from the intensity of business today. So maybe thinking about, if I'm on Facebook for 10 minutes, so what? It refreshes me. Just having lunch with a friend would refresh me.
It's my social smoke break. Why not, huh? There you go. Excellent. Yeah. Well, great. Well, that's all we have for today's show. Joanne, thank you for coming back on the show. That was fantastic.
Good treat, Kevin.
Great. Well, if you have any additional questions for us, make sure to email me to askkevin@thisweekend.com. Certainly, you can tweet at us @SalesWeek or like our Facebook page, This Week in Sales. And of course, don't forget to download our iTunes podcast. And finally, you can look for the show on www.youtube.com/show/This Week in Sales. Thanks for joining us. Have a happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. Have a great day.